Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everybody. This is Kero Riri Paddle, and today I'm sitting down with Electrish. Hello,
Hi, how are you?
I'm great. How are you doing?
I'm doing great, thanks.
Thank you so much for coming on to the show. I was telling you right before we started that I'm a fan of your cosplay. And not just your cosplay, but I think what you're doing within the Synthwave community is also really cool. And I'm hoping we could talk a lot about those things.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Cool, wicked. So, could you tell the audience a little bit about you?
So, yeah, I am Electrish or Trish. I am from South Florida and I've been cosplaying for going on about 7 years now. I have been hosting Static Realms, which is an online music show, for about 8 months now, almost nine. And yeah, I love to cosplay. I'm very passionate about that. It's something that I'm always going to love doing. But I also am enjoying hosting this show, which is getting artists from the music community out there and showing what they can do. And in the process, I'm just having a blast doing both. Especially during the pandemic, when there's not much going on, I'm able to be more creative and get other people out there as much as I'm getting myself out there. So it's great.
That's awesome. I love to hear that. I love to hear that cosplayers and musicians as well that they're staying as active as they possibly can during this time.
I think that it's very important to use the gift of time that we were given during the pandemic to be as creative as possible. And you don't have to go crazy like I did, but I think it's something that's it definitely helps to be creative and have something to focus your energy and your time on.
Absolutely. And the thing about you with your activity online is how prolific you are. Like it's not just hosting shows, it's not just talking with artists, it's your cosplay. You scroll down your Instagram, you see so much of your work, you see so many different cosplays. You check all of your auxiliary sites and like you're really growing your brand, you're pushing the artistry of what you do. It's something that I feel cosplayers are starting to understand more. Obviously, a lot of them have migrated to TikTok, creating YouTube content. But
Yeah,
I think going forward, that should be the norm for any sort of content creator, any sort of creative. Just utilize the internet to the best of its ability, and then you will
I
see the
agree.
fruits of your labor.
I agree. And because it's a hobby that just is continuous for me, it's an everyday part of my life. I think that, having this digital sort of, way to see everything that I've done just in the past year is pretty cool. And the fact that people like it is even better. It makes it even more fun.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So tell us, how did you get into cosplay?
So I got into cosplay basically not knowing what cosplay really was. I've always been very theme oriented, which means, even just growing up as a kid, I was always wanting to dress up and just wear fun outfits and, go to parties and, do things that were just sort of dressing up as an occasion and as something that was fun. But then it just kind of fell into place when I discovered cosplay. I was like, wait, this is something that people do and they go places in costumes and, just for fun. All right, this is great. I'm going to do this. And then I just fell in love with it and I've always been sort of a nerd, so it was just like so much fun to be able to dress up as characters that I've always loved and for other people to really look at what I do and say, "Yeah, she's doing something really cool." So, yeah, I love it.
When you started cosplaying, what was the scene like for you? Did you have friends that were doing it with you? Were you by yourself and you had to seek others?
So I really just started it on my own. I've always been kind of, I guess, an independent sort of artist where I like to do something, so I just keep doing it, and it doesn't matter if other people around me are doing it. I just go with it. And cosplay was kind of the same way for me. When I'm not in a costume and I'm not in a group of people that I really know well, I'm not that outgoing until you get to know me. So cosplay for me was a way to be creative and to meet people actually and make friends through doing so. And I've always been sort of more independent in my cosplay as well, where I just do my own photos and I wear what I want to wear, and I hope that other people understand what I'm trying to go for. So yeah, it's been kind of an independent journey for me, but it's paid off, and I couldn't complain about it. It's something that I really am passionate about.
Yeah, you can see your passion in spades. I really do think that the attention to detail and the effort you put into your art, it's incredible. It's something that you could tell it's not only someone who cares about cosplay, but they've been doing it for so long. And
Yeah.
something I've also noticed about cosplayers, like you said, it's usually the ones that are independent. Like they would be doing it even if they didn't have a community around them. You can
Yeah.
see the effort that goes into their cosplay, the way they embrace photography, the way they embody a character, and I see all of that with you.
Thank you so much. Yeah, I appreciate it. Like I said, it became a part of my everyday life, and I focus so much energy and so much time and effort on it that I think that it's great that people can pick up on that and enjoy that as well, because it makes me happy. It makes me very happy. Every time I put on a costume, I feel like a little kid, I'm just like, yay, this is going to be a great day. So,
Oh man, I wish I still felt like that with my hobbies. Sometimes I'm so reluctant to do something that I love.
every
It's
day. It depends on the day, honestly. But yeah,
nah, I feel you on that. So you're a self-proclaimed geek.
yes, yes, I am.
What comics did you read growing up? What series did you watch? Anything else that you were into like that?
So I'm a child of the 80s, as you can probably tell from the Static Realms show that I host. I'm into the 80s atmosphere and aesthetic, but I was also very inspired by early 90s cartoons, such as the X-Men animated series, Spider-Man, absolutely Spider-Man, and just so many other things that I was reading at the time, which was, action comics and, a lot of Marvel and just characters that I could relate to, but also, really enjoy reading about. So I really got into Spider-Man and the Spider-Verse and also DC Comics, but mostly Marvel characters from the X-Men and from Spider-Man were really what inspired me.
I miss that era of comics. I grew up with comics in the 90s, and just something about that era, it's so iconic. Like I think of, like you said, Spider-Man, Todd McFarlane's Spider-Man, the work he was doing during that time, all of the inspiration from Frank Miller, and like you just see so much of that inspiring what we have today. And it's like I feel that's an era that isn't talked about enough. Everyone thinks of the 70s, 80s, 90s for sci-fi, for comics, and they forget about like how important like X-Men the animated series was, how important it was for a lot of those earlier series, like even like Batman the animated series. And
Yeah.
yeah, I think of those comics and I absolutely love that era, and it like I said, it's great to hear you speak about that.
I'm probably aging myself in doing so, but it's okay.
You and me both, it's all right. Nah, but I also feel that like with the way comics are today and how popular they are, it's only a matter of time before the modern day fan starts looking back to that era and they see exactly what we see and we grew up with. I think
I
that was
hope
a peak for creativity.
Yeah, I hope that they do, because I think that comics, just like everything, has changed quite a bit, and it's good to go back and see where things were, started, and when certain characters kind of had these really amazing moments before now. So they keep doing like these remakes of every series and every character. It's like issue one of Deadpool. Like how many series are there? There's so many. So it's nice to have a reference point of time to go back to. Like the one that we enjoy.
Yeah, I don't know how I feel about all of these restarts and revamps. Like, since I've left high school, I feel Marvel has restarted twice, DC has restarted three times. It's always something new, and it's like,
A lot. Yeah.
why do you have to make it such a short cyclical nature? Whatever happened to letting something play out through the era, letting an artist have their own spin on the story?
It's just like anything. The more times you can revamp something, the more money you can make. So I guess that's what they're going for.
That's true. That's true. Right.
Yeah.
My nephews, their Spider Man is like the most recent Spider Man, and it's like I still think of Tobey Maguire as my Spider Man.
Yeah, of course. He's the man. But, every generation is going to feel differently. So this is their Spider-Man, this is their generation. So, you know, it's just not the same though to us, right?
Yeah, I like Tom Holland. I think he's a fantastic actor. But like you
Yeah,
said, it's not for me so much.
yeah, agreed.
We'll come back to comics a little later on, but let's talk about Synthwave.
Okay, so it's just like cosplay. I fell in love with synthwave music when I discovered it, not really knowing what it was about. You know, being someone who did grow up in the 80s, and, you know, I was somebody that really enjoyed 80s music and pop, you know, synthwave based pop. So when I discovered synthwave as a whole and the different versions of synthwave, I was just like, wow, this is great music. And I'm so surprised that it's not more popular than it is. And then I discovered so many other artists that I just couldn't believe weren't more well known. So through Static Realms, which I can't take credit for creating, that's my boyfriend's baby, but he introduced me to the artists themselves, and we were able to actually, you know, speak to these artists and have them on our show. And it was just amazing to do that and to be able to get their music out there to people, because I love it, and the fact that other people can, you know, watch it and enjoy it as well is so wonderful too.
And that's something I love about the synthwave community. It's how much we all want to help each other and elevate each other. Like, there are cliques, but like at the same time, I find that there's more people who want to come together and like do what you're doing on Not So Serious show. They want to bring together the community. They want to showcase them in an interesting way, and it makes for such a strong, tight knit group.
I agree. I've met so many wonderful people through the synthwave community and through, you know, the different avenues of having the ability to host the show on Static Realms that, you know, it's just been so honestly so wonderful during the pandemic to be able to not only listen to this amazing music that I've loved, but to speak to the actual artists themselves and get their music out there and do interviews with them as well. It's just so surreal to me. Still is. There's my cat.
Hello, Kat. How are you?
This is Tolkien.
Tolkien, wicked.
Yeah.
Nice, nice.
Yeah.
Hello, Tolkien. So what artists do you and Tolkien listen to?
There's so many. It's hard to narrow down just one artist, but lately I've been very into, you know, Droid Bishop and Carpenter Brute and, you know, the classics like that to me of synthwave that, you know, I sort of veer off from, but then I come back to every time because they're just so good.
You have an appreciation for the more classic style of synthwave. What do you think about the newer offset genres of synthwave that's kind of pulling from mainstream music, maybe like 90s inspired instead of more 80s inspired electronic?
I love it as well. I think it's so great to hear that. It's great to be reminded of the music that I was jamming out to in my younger years and jamming out to music that's inspired by it now. Is, you know, it doesn't get any better than that. I love the fact that all music is inspired by other genres and other artists are inspired by others. So it's fantastic to be able to kind of hear a mix of all of the things that you love in one genre. But nothing's really one genre, it's a mix of everything. So it's still great though to hear it.
Yeah, absolutely. Like I've loved synthwave for quite some time, like 2012, 13, whatever. I've had periods where I've walked away from it. I come back a year later and the scene sometimes sounds the same. It sometimes sounds
Yeah.
drastically different. But like you said, like lately there's a lot of inspirations. It's still retro, but as we move on and we grow with synthwave, a lot of artists are now starting to take more risk. You didn't hear a lot of new wave Prince, sort of like Quincy Jones era Michael Jackson in early synthwave. Now you're hearing more of that. You're hearing a lot more funk, and I like that. Like you're getting to the point where synthwave is becoming very mature.
Right. I agree. I love that. I think it's great. And you see a lot of artists that are even, you know, on the more mainstream side, like The Weeknd, and he's definitely inspired by that sound, that kind of aesthetic of that funky synthwave kind of sound that he goes for. I love that. I love that.
When I heard Over Now, I believe it's Calvin Harris produced and The Weeknd featured, it was so yacht rock. Like it reminded me of something you'd hear on like Miami Vice or like any of those shows. And this was before his before After Hours came out. And I was thinking, what would a synthwave inspired album by The Weeknd sound like? And
Right?
then we ended up getting it, and I
It's
think
great.
it's so incredible. It's really
Incredible.
really good.
And his music videos and his live performance, I think he's great. I mean, and I think that anyone that doesn't appreciate the sound that he has is, I don't know, they're missing out. They're not seeing it.
Absolutely. I'm a big fanboy of The Weeknd because I'm going to brag a little bit. I've known of his music since before he popped off. I'm from the same city as him, so when like he had maybe if 300 views on his early videos on YouTube before House of Balloons came out, I thought, wow, this guy's listening to Susie and the Banshees. He's listening to Beach House. He's having all these great samples
Yeah.
on his songs. He's going to be something awesome. And it's amazing that 10 years later, he's still around and he's still pulling from music that I'm listening to that I never thought would have intersected with. Like you hear Miley Cyrus, Dua Lipa, they're doing a bunch of synthwave stuff, but he's assembled the right producers. He has the right amount of songwriting. He's collaborating with others to push the sound forward, and I'm really hoping that people within the synthwave community see what he's doing and they push themselves so they can get to that like that space as well within music.
Yeah. I mean, I'm so happy that he has gotten as big as he has gotten. And that's awesome that you're from his hometown. That's really cool. You probably have met him somewhere and didn't even realize it.
No, no, I haven't.
You're like, I would remember that.
Yeah, he had that strange hair back in the day that unfortunately inspired a lot of people to just stop brushing and combing their hair. So I feel like if I passed by him on the street, I would have been like, oh, what is that pineapple looking thing? Like, what is that? Nah,
Right?
but he is incredible. Like I look up to him, I look up to Drake. I know they're very mainstream artists, but just to see how they pull from smaller genres and they will sometimes name drop or they'll use writers within those musical genres, it's nice to see that sort of like acceptance from the mainstream. You didn't always see that before, and it can't just be like people like you creating an environment where you're doing so much for the artist, because sometimes the artist just needs to get a little bit of that mainstream push.
Yeah, I agree. There's so many artists out there that are fantastic, and I really encourage people to try and discover them as much as you can. Through Spotify or any or Bandcamp, you can support the artists because there's so many artists out there that are just not being heard, and their music videos are incredible and not being seen. And with Static Realms, we try to really just focus on making it sort of in the same idea as early MTV, where you could discover people by turning on your show and just seeing artists that you really love their music. And that's what we hope to do.
On that topic, I really like the aesthetic you guys are going for, and I absolutely love the setup. It's so creative and it's very immersive. It puts you in that very 80s, 90s, maybe very early 90s kind of feel. And I wish more people within Synthwave would look at how creative we can be, because it makes for an experience, not just listening to the music, but now I want to watch every single interview that you do, all of these artists that are coming on your show that I may not have heard before. Now I'm super interested in them. I really like what you guys are doing. Can you tell me a little bit about the start to where y'all are today?
Sure. So I came on to Static Realms when it was already in existence, but it needed a host, and it had been around. I had seen the show already prior to becoming the host, and I really enjoyed the aesthetic of it. Of course, I was already into that vibe. And then, of course, I met Eddie Lovecraft, who's the creator, and he told me what it was about. He told me that he was looking for a new host. He and I were already, spending so much time together that we were like, you know what, we should do this, and we should restart this whole show and get it back, get it going again. And I was nervous because I'd never hosted anything. I didn't know what I was doing. And, I was like, oh gosh, this is going to be crazy. But as you know, I enjoy dressing up, I enjoy music. So it all just kind of worked out when I remember filming the first one and just saying, this is something I could totally get into and that I could totally do. And then from that, we just kept having more and more ideas for the show. I brought my ideas in, and, you know, Eddie's always got great ideas. He's very creative as well. And the two of us we make a really good team. So, you know, we've just built upon what we started with and just branched out. And it seems like 9 months feels like 2 years, but that's the amount of work that we try to put into it. A lot. The more the better, because there's so many ideas that we have. Unfortunately, we are limited, but I think we're very good at working with what we have and, you know, making it as creative as possible. And that's coming from both of our minds and both of our ideas. So it's really fun to do that.
And as I've said earlier about you being prolific, what you guys are doing, there's so much content. Your videos are so fun, and it's definitely great for the community. You guys are pillars. Thank you so much. And
thank you. That's so nice. Thank you.
If this is what 9 months is, I can't imagine what 2 years, 5 years will look like. Like it's incredible.
Sometimes we look back at the things that we've done, and even we're shocked. We're like, whoa. But, you know, the pandemic and not being able to go out and do things, we've really utilized that time that we had to focus on Static Realms and do as many episodes as we could. And we are really planning more and more and more things. So the next thing we're going to do is going to be like a full day of streaming, a full day of shows. So yeah, it's going to be fun.
Looking forward to that. What direction do you think Synthwave is going to go in when we lift restrictions, shows restart, and a flood of new artists hit the scene?
So I think that there's going to be just so much going on. And I think that Synthwave is definitely kind of so eclectic with the different genres that it embraces. So I think that a lot of festivals and a lot of venues are going to be able to host shows with synthwave artists and, you know, dark wave artists, and even just shows in general. I think that there are so many artists that didn't get the opportunities to promote their shows, promote shows for their new albums and their newest, you know, music that they have written. So I think that focusing on performing live is something that's at the forefront of a lot of artists' minds. And we as fans and we as, you know, the community, we definitely will be there. I know that I will, but I think that there's going to be a lot more going on. I think people are going to enjoy the feeling of being at a live show, and for that matter, performing at a live show so much more this coming, you know, maybe in the next year.
I regret missing out so many shows. I remember, I believe it's called Outland Fest or something. Yeah. It was, like I had never heard of it before, but then I want to say 2019. 2019 was when it was happening in my city, and I remember the weekend, and it was happening, and I'm like, you know what? I am tired from work. I'll catch it next year. I'll catch the artists when they roll in for their solo shows. Big mistake.
How would we know? You know, nobody knew what was going to happen. But I think that because of that, we really should not take anything for granted. And I don't think people will. I think that, you know, we are going to really enjoy every single opportunity we have when we are able to go to live shows again. I had bought like this planner, and I planned out 2020 like so well. And it included so many live shows that I was going to go see, you know, like a 3-day music festival. And I was like getting my brother to fly in and go with me, but it was like everything just kind of didn't happen. So I know that I personally will really appreciate being able to just be in that atmosphere and to experience a live show, even if it's just a small thing. I'm fine with that, you know, anything.
Yeah. Yeah, I just need shows to come back. I will never take them for granted again. I'm going to see every artist, big and small, from here on out. I'm going to spend so much time within the synthwave community that all y'all artists are going to be sick of seeing my face in the crowd.
I'll probably see you. That'd be awesome.
Oh, yeah, for sure. I think I'm going to start up a synthwave thing of myself, you know, just grab whoever and be like, look, I could play the tambourine. If you guys want to throw some tambourine, some triangle in there.
There you go. How about?
Another thing that I took for granted were conventions. I love anime and comics, and Toronto had a growing convention scene. I remember when Fan Expo Anime North was 2 days, then 3 days, and then 4 days. I remember when we started doing Comic Con, and it's unfortunate that the last few years we haven't been able to do any of that. It feels like the city, my city, has been very stunted, and I'm sure some other cities, as they were growing with cosplay and comic book culture, they feel the same way. I still reminisce of those days, though. I really do miss them, and I can't wait for them to come back. Can you tell me what your experiences were like with conventions?
Yeah, so before the pandemic, of course, I was trying to get to more conventions. I was at a point where I was really planning out every convention so that every day I was wearing a different cosplay and planning photo shoots and planning meetups and just anything and everything that I could, because I had been making so many great connections with photographers and with other cosplayers through conventions in South Florida, such as MegaCon in Orlando, in Florida SuperCon. They started having conventions so often that the ones that I was able to go to, I was, going pretty hard and doing as much as I could. So I am grateful for the ones that I was able to go to before the pandemic. But then I had been planning to attend Dragon Con for the first time in 2020, and I actually still have my ticket. But yeah, that didn't happen. I was really excited for that one. But I think that, again, going back to utilizing time that you have, I think that being away from the convention circuit and having more time to go back to cosplays that I had not been working on and sort of finish those and create new cosplays and do so many other things creatively, I think that when I am ready to go back to the conventions and when they do happen again, I'm going to be even more excited and even more, ready to bring forth new cosplays and new skills that I've learned from being in quarantines for so long.
I think that a lot of cosplayers have really upped their ability. This is like some hyperbolic time chamber training. It's
Yeah.
just it's years of it will be years of spending time in your home learning how to navigate the social media circuit of cosplay, figuring out the mistakes you made with previous cosplays, improving
Yeah.
on them, creating new cosplays. I really can't wait to see what's next.
Yeah, me neither. And luckily for me, because of Not So Serious Show as a channel and because of Static Realms, I've been able to start my own cosplay show called Cosplay My Way. And I've just been able to, read comics and do reviews of characters and then create new cosplays and focus on having them on a show now. So for me, it's been great having that time to be able to do things because I had never done that before the pandemic happened. So going forward, I think I've learned a lot. So I'm glad. I'm grateful for that.
About Cosplay My Way, what I really appreciated about it was that you showed a behind the scenes of what goes into creating a cosplay. And I feel like for a lot of people, they see the finished product, but they're not able to determine everything that happens in between the gestation of the idea and then actually like bringing it to realization. Can you
Yeah.
just brief us pretty quickly what goes into developing a cosplay?
There's so much that goes into developing a cosplay. For me personally, I have dabbled in makeup artistry and I've had experience, a little bit of experience in styling and doing things like that. But costuming is a whole nother thing. It depends what you're going for. So depending on how elaborate it can be, you're going to have to, learn how to style a wig and, do your makeup and sewing and painting and gluing and just creating an entire cosplay. There is so much to go from start to finish. Sometimes it can take a few months, depending what you're doing. So the fact that you can do a tutorial and show someone before, during, and after, I think it's wonderful. I think it's wonderful that people pay attention to what we do as cosplayers because it takes so much time and effort to get to where I am and where so many other people are at this time. So it's great to be able to show people step by step what I did to do certain things that I've worked on. And I think it's important that I focus on that because people don't really understand how much time and how much effort it does take. So I think that it will just help people appreciate it more. And I think that it helps me appreciate it more, knowing the time that I've spent on something just to get it out there.
Yeah, absolutely. It really does take so much work. How are you growing your cosplay and your brand online? I know you have Instagram, but what else are you utilizing?
So I do use Twitter for Static Realms. I do use Facebook, and I do have my own website version of Cosplay My Way. It's cosplaymyway.com. So I'm going to be posting all of my updates, all of my videos, everything in there. And also, I sell prints and just anything and everything that I'm doing, I'm trying to get out there so that people can find it and, enjoy it and hope that, people will pay attention. And I think they do. I think they do. Instagram is my main source, but I think that the website and Facebook have been helpful as well.
Another great thing about cosplay is that there are so many resources, not only to learn through tutorials like what you provide, but when you want to support an artist, when you want to see as much of them as you possibly can. Before it really used to be conventions. You'd see them at a convention. Maybe they had their convention article that they would write about on their blog spot, and it's changed. Now you have 24/7. There's Instagram, there's Twitter, there's interacting through Facebook, and obviously many cosplayers have their own website. It makes it such a strong field, and it also makes it a reality for people to pursue it as a career.
Absolutely. And I think it's very important to create your own digital portfolio as much as you can, especially now for cosplayers to have a resource to go to see what you do and what other cosplayers have done. It's very helpful because at conventions sometimes it's so fast paced and you're doing so many things at once that it's hard to really get a feel for what someone does as a cosplayer just from face to face meeting at a convention. So it's definitely helpful to have that website.
For sure. Before everything locked down, what conventions had you been to?
The last convention that I had been to before the lockdown was, I want to say it was MegaCon in Orlando. Yeah, it was. And it's so funny because I enjoyed that convention so much. It was such a good year for me that when the year mark hit during the pandemic, from seeing the photos from the previous year at the convention, I was like, I can't believe that it's been a year. It was mind blowing. But yeah, MakeaCon in Orlando is a 4-day convention. It's a huge convention center, and there's always so much going on there. You have a lot of different meetups, a lot of great panels, and a lot of great celebrities go to that convention center as well.
Our conventions here in Toronto are just starting to play catch up. While they can, get pretty rowdy, pretty big, and we have our decent amount of guests, to hear that you have so many available. Like, I know Florida is great for cons. It's great for anything really, but just
Lots of them.
in America, you guys have so many opportunities to live out your cosplay fantasies, and I
Yeah.
can't wait to go to an American con.
Yeah, there's so much fun, and especially when they're 3 or 4 days, you really get the opportunity to try and find as many things to do as possible while you're at the convention center. Even if you're just going as a fan and not dressing up, there's still so many things that you can do and you can see. It's amazing.
And you would have a different cosplay for each day?
Yes, I would pride myself on when I would meet someone on the first day in one cosplay and the next day have a completely different cosplay, and people would be like, "You look familiar. Have we met?" I'm like, "Yeah, yesterday I was, dressed as this cosplay." And they're like, "Wow, that was you." I love that.
How do you do that? I've spoken to other guests, and some of them, they don't have the energy. Even by day 3 of wearing just one cosplay, they get so tired. What do you do to inspire yourself to go through all of that?
So this is like a pro tip for anybody that, wants to use this, go right ahead. I pride myself on being caffeinated, have all of the supplies that I need, hydration, everything. It's very important to prepare yourself for a convention, especially those 4 days of, not getting as much sleep as you would want. So stay hydrated, bring snacks, bring your coffee maker to the convention center and keep it in the hotel room. That comes in handy.
So basically, just walk with like a sack of coffee beans,
Yeah.
and
So
you're good to go.
I'm the type of person where like if someone's like at a convention and they know me and they're starving, they'll come up to me like, "Hey, do you have any like, granola bars?" And I'll be like, "Yeah, here you go." Yeah, they know I'm gonna have a banana or something like hidden in a cosplay bag or something.
You're essentially the healer of the group.
I guess I would just say I'm a veteran. I've been doing it for long enough to know that you're gonna need Advil and water and a snack at some point.
Awesome. Is there anything about the cosplay community in all of your time in it that you're hoping will change when we get back together? It could be maybe something positive you want to improve or something negative that you're hoping goes away.
Yes, I would be remiss if I didn't say that I would like to see more positivity in the cosplay community, more positivity and encouragement between cosplayers, and less negativity and less competition. Because cosplay is something that everyone should enjoy. And it doesn't matter if you started yesterday or started 7 years ago. I think that it's important to encourage other people who are getting into it or that may not feel as confident as you do as a cosplayer. I think it's so important for cosplayers to present themselves in a kind way to others. And that just goes for people in general. I think it's really great to be kind to others. And if someone asks you where you found a wig or something, don't shame them for wanting to know. They're looking up to you, and I think it's important to be a kind soul to others and help them, and just be a cool person. It's not hard.
Do you have an opinion on cosplayers that buy their cosplays head to toe? Or do you just accept it as a part of cosplay as it is today?
I think that it's not something to be shamed. I think that some people just lack the ability or the time to be able to be as creative as others. And I think that buying an entire cosplay, that's okay. If someone doesn't feel like they could make a cosplay or create a cosplay that was as good as something that they've purchased, that's fine, because at the end of the day, there was someone that did make what they purchased and they deserve to be, supported for their efforts as well. But I think it is very important in the same respect to always acknowledge the people that have helped you make props and headpieces and just different pieces of cosplays that you've purchased. I think it's very important to support the people that those come from. Even if it's just 3D printed and you painted it, I think it's really, really great to kind of partner with other people to make something creative and to give them credit. It's important.
Okay, cool. In what ways has the cosplay scene changed from year one up to where you are now?
So I would say the biggest change that I have noticed is the sexuality in the cosplay scene. I think that there are a lot of cosplayers that have branched out of cosplay and gone into more adult entertainment avenues, which is fine. I have nothing wrong with that. I think that it is for everyone, and I think that it's become less of a family affair and more of an independent venture for a lot of artists. And more power to them if that's how they're making their source of income and finances. I think that everyone should be able to express themselves creatively in whichever way that they choose, as long as it's not hurting other people.
I agree with you. I agree with you for the most part. I do have a slight opinion that there are people that I'm familiar with. The nature of my day job, I've and the city that I live in, I've had to interact with a lot of photographers, a lot of models. I know models who legitimately were disgusted by anyone who was interested in any sort of nerd culture, any geeky stuff, anime, and now they're making a killing on OnlyFans or anything else like that, and they really enable their followers and their fans, and it seems like they're moving as if they were longtime fans of certain comic book characters. And it's like, I know you weren't, because I remember you from high school, I remember you from college, and you did not mess with us at all. You were not a part of our community. So while I'm open to the growth and acceptance, and also it will become more adult over time, I can't help but feel there is a lot of disingenuous the people who are coming into the community, because they see people like you who are vets, who've put in the time and they've established what the playing field is, and they kind of want to just come in and say, I'm going to pretend I've always been a fan so I can capitalize.
Right. It's just like anything. I think that people will take it as as a means of easy money, even if they're not a fan, or even if they're not being, as kind as they could to other people, and just kind of doing it for themselves. I think that's not really a great way of going about it. And I think that it also is kind of it's kind of an insult to the creators of characters when they're taking a character that someone else created and cheapening that character to make money. It's not great, but I think that as long as people enjoy what they do, and as long as they, are honest about the reasons why they're doing it, I think that's a great thing. And I have nothing against OnlyFans and content creators, because I myself have an OnlyFans page, but I think that it's different for everyone, and it pertains to what you decide you want to put out into the world. So, I think that people should always understand that everyone else does things for their own reasons, but really it should be something for everybody.
What are your 3 favorite cosplays that you've done so far?
Oof, that's tough because I have so many at this point. I would say that definitely the classic Batgirl was definitely a favorite of mine, because I had been going through a tough time in my life, and cosplay was sort of my release at that moment. And Batgirl, the character, was someone that I thought was such a strong, strong female who had overcome so many things in her own life. That really inspired me to finish the cosplay that I'd been working on for so long. And when I did, and just seeing the response from it, that was like amazing. I still remember that. So definitely that original Batgirl design is one of my favorites. Also, I would say Mystique. Mystique is a good one. Mystique is a great character because she is a shapeshifter and she can become any other character. And I definitely identify with that myself. So that's a good one. And then also I would say, probably Jean Grey, the Phoenix. That was another really cool one for me, because I always loved the character, and I felt that even if we weren't going to get a movie and see a great, rendition of the character, at least at conventions, cosplayers go hard and they can represent her character, which I did.
Absolutely. Your Mystique is great, by the way.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
It's very good. And I love Batgirl. Cassandra Cain, Barbara Gordon. I love the story of Batgirl. I've always liked Batgirl a little bit more than Robin, especially after Jason Todd died. Because, I got into comics before Tim Drake became Robin. So for me, Jason Todd is my Robin, and as much as I like Dick Grayson, I like Nightwing, just to see what happened to the evolution, or I should say the de-evolution of the Robin character, kind of hurt me. But I always felt something great towards Batgirl, overcoming all of that trauma and becoming something so powerful.
She's such a very important supporting character in so many comic books in DC that I really hope that we see more of her, in film and in other series, because she's such a great character.
I hope so too. With the push of Harley and even Poison Ivy as an adjacent to Harley, I want to see Batgirl get that elevation, that popularity, because
Me too.
We've said it already. She's an incredible character, and there's so much story of hers to be told that can inspire so many. What are a few artists that you're currently listening to? Any genre, any era?
So I have been listening to French 79, which is a French synthwave group. It's really just one guy who creates such incredible soundscapes, and I've been listening to a lot of soundtracks, and I I love listening to old soundtracks from movies that I love all the time. Um, the Labyrinth is a good one. Never get tired of that soundtrack. David Bowie is great. I listen to a little bit of everything every day, so that's like the past couple days.
Cool. I find myself listening to a lot of different music now that I'm working from home. I'm listening to things that I never listened to before, but it's a great time to be getting involved or getting
Definitely.
interested to new things.
One thing I love to do is just listen to music while I'm working on cosplays or working on a photo shoot. It really helps to get myself in that creative zone. So yeah.
Name two of your favorite heroes and or villains. Two from Marvel, two from DC.
Okay, so is it okay if I name the same one twice that we've already been talking about?
Oh, that's fine. Yeah, yeah.
Okay, it's allowed. All right. So definitely Peter Parker, Spider-Man from Marvel. And I've always loved Venom as well to kind of be the villain of that world. He's a great alien character, and I just love their dynamic together is just crazy. And so for DC, I would say Batgirl and probably Catwoman. Catwoman's a good one.
Why Catwoman?
So as you can see, I'm a cat lady myself, and I think that Catwoman is just such a strong character. She kind of is in that gray area where she's not quite a villain, but she's not quite a hero. It depends. It really depends on the situation. She is a thief, and she does get away with things that are not quite legal. But I think that she does things coming from a good place, and she's got a great spirit. So Catwoman's a cool character.
Great. I also have to say, you petting your cat this entire time, you are coming off as like a wicked supervillain. I feel like this is kind of your origin story. I'm revealing so much about you.
It says a lot about me. The fact that my cat is sitting here while I'm stroking him.
Uh, do you have any tips for online content creators, musicians within the electronic genres? You're so involved with this scene. I'm sure you've seen things that you can definitely pass on to others.
Absolutely. I would say when you have any kind of a craft, whether it's cosplay or music or even just writing, things like that, continue to do it as much as possible and just ask people where they think that your music can be heard or seen, because you never know until you ask, and it might not happen overnight or quickly, but I think that it's very important in this age to share things with each other as much as possible and spread the word about artists that you enjoy as much as possible. So if your craft is music, definitely get your music out there and put it on every available streaming service, because eventually people will pick up and they'll listen to it, and someone somewhere is dancing to your music somewhere. So keep doing it.
Just to go off of that, like I'm so grateful for the show that like I said, there are so many artists that now I can listen to that I never got a chance to before, and I'm so grateful that these artists are also very open because they're talking to you. They're talking about like the creative process, what the scene means to them, and we never really had that before. Even as the internet got more popular,
Yeah.
so Static Realms is perfect for that.
It's such a great experience for me as well, as someone who's able to interview artists and speak to them about their music, because you really get an insight about how things are created and how musicians spend their time creating their songs and working on their songs, and it's a really great thing to see and to hear. And I think that it's so important for people to open up to that, because, you know, especially now, we need to know what's going on out there. You know, the world hasn't stopped. People in it haven't stopped being creative. So it's very good to be able to get it out there.
Do you have any tips for cosplayers?
Yes, I would say don't worry if you can't finish a cosplay as quickly as you had hoped. Be patient and put it away if you have to, because you can always come back to it later. And just be nice. Be nice to people and support everyone, because I think it's very important to share kindness.
I see. Trish, what would you be doing right now in your life if you didn't have Static Realms, if you didn't have comics, if you didn't have cosplay?
So, would I exist? I don't know. No, I would probably be working a job that I did not enjoy. And I would probably be miserable. So I would probably be reading a lot more books and not talking to anyone. So this is my social life, and I really appreciate it.
And I'm grateful that you discovered this stuff, because you do so much for cosplay, you do so much for music, and we don't need more introverts reading books. We need more people going out there and talking about comic books. That's what we need.
I agree. Yeah.
Trish, I want to say thank you. This was an amazing interview. You were a well of knowledge, and it was awesome talking about heroes, music, content creation, all of this stuff over the last hour. Thank you.
Thank you so much for having me. I really love your channel, and what you're doing for cosplayers and artists alike is wonderful. So I am honored. So thank you so much.
I appreciate that. It's the guests that make the show. I just kind of piggyback off you guys. Do you have anything that you would like to plug?
Sure. So you can find me online on Instagram at Electrish, and Facebook Electrish Cosplay, and you can always visit Cosplay My Way and see everything that I post with my shows on there, and as well as staticrealms.com.
There you go, guys. Links will be in the description below. Thank you, everybody, for coming by. This was Kero Riripado, and this was Electrish. Take care, y'all.